Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Jumpin' Mac Flash. We are caught up in the crossfire hurricane today. How many we got today, John?
3, 4, 5.
Yep, 3, 4, 5. You got it, but we're going to start off with number 1, post 1933. 10 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we get this Sarah Carter link. Q says, big puzzle piece. Who is systematically arranging the leaks to select individuals? Why is this important to drop in brackets prior to the Bruce Orr testimony? Q. Well, we are going to go into this article. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's basically going to be the whole centerpiece around the Q post today. So let's get into it. This is from SaregCarter.com. Whistleblower exposes key player in FBI Russia probe. It was all a setup. Adam Lovinger, a former Defense Department analyst, never expected that what he stumbled on during his final months at the Pentagon would expose an integral player in the FBI's handling of President Donald Trump's campaign and alleged Russia collusion. Lovinger, a whistleblower, is now battling to save his career. The Pentagon suspended his top secret security clearance May 1, 2017, when he exposed through an internal review that Stephen Halper, who was then an emeritus Cambridge professor, had received roughly $1 million in taxpayer-funded money to write Defense Department foreign policy reports. His attorney, Sean Bigley, said, before Lovinger's clearance was suspended, he had taken a detail to the National Security Council as Senior Director for Strategy. He was only there for 5 months before he was recalled to the Pentagon, stripped of his prestigious White House detail, and ordered to perform bureaucratic makework in a Pentagon annex Bigley calls the land of misfit toys. His security clearance was eventually revoked in March 2018, despite the Pentagon refusing to turn over a single page of its purported evidence of Lovinger's wrongdoing, Bigley stated. Conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch recently filed a federal lawsuit against the Defense Department to obtain the withheld records. Lovinger also raised concerns about Halper's role in conducting what appeared to be diplomatic meetings with foreigners on behalf of the U.S. government, because his role as contractor forbids him from doing so according to U.S. federal law. An investigation by SaregCarter.com reveals that the documents and information Lovinger stumbled on and other documents obtained by this news site raised troubling questions about Halper, who was believed to have worked with the CIA and part of the matrix of players in the Bureau's crossfire hurricane investigation into Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Halper, who assisted the FBI in the Russia investigation, appears to have had significant ties to the Russian government, as well as sources connected directly to President Vladimir Putin. Halper did not respond to requests for comment. When Mr. Lovinger raised concerns about DOD's misuse of Stephen Halper in 2016, he did so without any political designs or knowledge of Mr. Halper's spying activities, Bigley told SaregCarter.com. Instead, Mr. Lovinger simply did what all Americans should expect of our civil servants. He reported violations of law and a gross waste of public funds to his superiors. And for that, Bigley said, Lovinger has paid the ultimate price in his 12-year career as a strategist in the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment. According to Bigley, shortly after Lovinger began reporting and asking questions about suspicious contracts given to Halper and others, including one person closely associated, Chelsea Clinton, his security clearance was suspended. Later on April 3, 2018, the DoD's Washington headquarters service director Barbara Westgate sent a letter to Lovinger indefinitely suspending him from duty and pay status after his clearance was removed in March. The letter stated, "The purpose of this memorandum is to notify you that I am proposing to indefinitely suspend you from duty and pay status in your position as a foreign affairs specialist." Lovinger, who is married with 3 children and is the family's primary breadwinner, has been living off the generosity of family members since his pay was removed. The retaliation for whistleblowing was something Bigley expected, so we weren't surprised when DoD bureaucrats moved shortly thereafter to strip Mr. Lovinger of both his security clearance and his detail to the National Security Council, where he had been Senior Director for Strategy as a by-name request of the incoming Trump administration, said the attorney. Yet we were puzzled by the unprecedented ferocity of efforts to discredit Mr. Lovinger, including leaks from DoD of false and defamatory information to the press, he said. Our assumption was that the other contractor about whom Mr. Lovinger explicitly raised concerns, a close confidant of Hillary Clinton, was the reason for the sustained assault on Mr. Lovinger, and that certainly may have played a role. Bigley suspects it was more than the Clinton-connected contracts, adding, Mr. Lovinger unwittingly shined a spotlight on the deep state's secret weapon, Stephen Halper, and threatened to expose the truth about the Trump-Russia collusion narrative that's being plotted, that it was all a setup. Halper's ties to Russian officials raise serious questions. Halper has had a long career and worked in government with several GOP administrations. At 73, the elusive professor spent a career developing top-level government connections, not just through academia, but also through his work with members of the intelligence apparatus. Those contacts and the information Halper collected along the way would eventually, through apparent circumstance, become utilized by the FBI against the Trump campaign. But it was during his time hosting the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar at the University of Cambridge where Halper shifted from a professor and former government consultant to FBI informant on the Trump campaign. In 2016, Halper was an integral part of the FBI's investigation into short-term Trump campaign volunteer Carter Page. Halper first made contact with Page at his seminar in July 2016. Page, who was already on the FBI's radar, was accused of being sympathetic to Russia and sought better relations between the U.S. and Russian officials. Halper stayed in contact with Page until September 2017. During that time, the FBI sought and obtained a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISC, to spy on Page and used Halper to collect information on him, according to sources. The House Intelligence Committee Russia report and documents obtained by this outlet revealed that the bulk of the warrant against Page relied heavily on an unverified dossier compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele, and the matter is still under congressional investigation. Steele, who was a former MI6 agent, also had ties to many of the same people, like former MI6 chief Sir Richard Dearlove, who were part of the seminar. Halper, along with Dearlove, left the Cambridge Intelligence Seminar in December 2016, saying they were concerned about Russian influence. Halper had told reporters at the time that it was due to unacceptable Russian influence. Ironically, documents obtained by SarahACarter.com suggest that Halper also had invited senior Russian intelligence officials to co-teach his course on several occasions, and according to news reports, also accepted money to finance the course from a top Russian oligarch with ties to Putin. Several course syllabi from 2012 and 2015 obtained by this outlet reveal Halper had invited and co-taught his course on intelligence with the former director of Russian intelligence, General Vladimir I. Trubnikov. On May 4, 2012, the course syllabus states, Ambassador I. Trubnikov will comment on the challenges faced while directing the Foreign Intelligence Service, his tenure as ambassador to India, President Putin, and the likely course of Russia's relations with Britain and the U.S. In May 2015, Trubnikov returned to teach with Halper at his seminar in Cambridge on current relations between the Russian Federation and the West. Other notable intelligence experts attended the event in 2015, including Major General Peter Williams, a former British commander of the mission to the Soviet forces in Germany. Halper's partner in the seminar, Cambridge Professor Neil Kent, has also espoused better relations with Russia and Putin in his writings and told Russia Today in a 2014 interview that everyone is attacking and demonizing Russia. According to Kent's biography, he was a professor from 2002 to 2012 at Russia's St. Petersburg State Academic Institute. Even more interesting are reports from the British media outlet, the Financial Times, that state Halper received funds for the Cambridge seminar from Russian billionaire Andrei Cheglakov, who has close ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Cheglakov also funded VeryScript in 2016, which raised the suspicion of Dearlove and those connected to the seminar. VeryScript, a publisher for a Russian academic journal, was suspected by MI6 of being a front for Russian intelligence. Kent also happened to be the editor-in-chief of the journal. He published the inaugural article in the Journal of Intelligence and Terrorism, blaming the West for the Russian invasion into Crimea, but the journal closed down due to their suspicions. Dearlove was also concerned that Russia may be seeking to use the seminar as an impeccably credentialed platform to covertly steer debate and opinion on high-level sensitive defense and security topics, according to the Financial Times sources. A former senior intelligence official told this news outlet it's all smoke and mirrors. Halper was well aware when he was bringing in Trubnikov in 2012 that the Russians were already there at his invitation. The FBI uses Halper to get more information on Trump aides, but it's Halper who has the real connection to Russia. Lovinger raised concerns with top officials at the Pentagon in 2016 and noted that Halper went far beyond his work as a contractor after he discovered that the amount of money the professor was being paid for his research did not make sense. Lovinger stressed his concern that Halper was not just being utilized as a contractor, but that he was also conducting diplomatic work for the Pentagon in violation of federal law, according to Bigley. In one email from Stephen Halper to Andrew May, the second highest ranking official in Lovinger's office, Halper writes about a planned trip to conduct meetings in India. I'm in Cambridge en route to India, arriving Saturday. So far, 14 meetings have been scheduled with various parts of the political military community. On Monday, a meeting is planned with the Delhi Policy Group, where I will meet with Brigadier Sehgal, who is apparently working with ONA, Office of Net Assessment. Can you tell me anything about him, according to the document obtained by SaregCarter.com? Halper and George Papadopoulos. Halper was not only spying on Page for the FBI in 2016, but he had also made contact in September 2016 with another Trump campaign volunteer, George Papadopoulos. He invited Papadopoulos to London that September, luring him with the $3,000 paycheck to work on a research paper under contract. By this time, the young Trump campaign volunteer had already been in contact with London-based professor Joseph Mifsud, who had basically informed him that the Russians had damaging material about Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Mifsud's role had also come into question by Congress. Eventually, Papadopoulos was swept into Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation and pled guilty to one count of lying to the FBI. His wife, Simona Papadopoulos, who'd been a vocal advocate for her husband, told SaregCarter.com that essentially he was forced to plead guilty because of threats from Mueller's team and a lack of financial resources. After testifying behind closed doors last month to the House Intelligence Committee, Simona told this outlet that she testified to Congress as far as George is concerned, he met with individuals following the same pattern of behavior, and all of a sudden, Halper was asking if he was doing anything with Russians. This is the case with Halper, who is now proven to be a spy, possibly with Australian Ambassador Alexander Downer, who her husband met with in London. Halper and Michael Flynn. Before Page and Papadopoulos, there was the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Army Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Flynn had been invited to Cambridge in February 2014 for a dinner hosted by both Dearlove and Halper. But during that time, Flynn was already walking a fine line with the Obama administration and battling President Obama and the CIA over his deep disagreement with the administration's narrative that Al-Qaeda and extremist groups had been defeated or were on the run. Several months later, Flynn was forced to resign early and ended his tenure as the director of the DIA. Flynn was pushed out by Obama and then became a thorn in the side of Obama and the Clintons when he joined the Trump campaign, said a former senior intelligence source with knowledge of what happened. The investigation into Trump didn't start with Carter Page or George Papadopoulos, but with Flynn. Flynn was already on the CIA and Clinton target list. Those same people sure as hell didn't want him in the White House, and they sure as hell didn't want Trump to win. Flynn's career with Trump ended as quickly as it came. He was forced to resign as Trump's national security advisor 27 days after taking the job. The highly classified conversation between Flynn and former Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak was leaked to the Washington Post in January 2017, and he was later questioned by the FBI on that conversation. According to former FBI Director James Comey, the agents who interviewed Flynn did not believe he was lying, but in the end, Flynn pled guilty to one count of lying to the special counsel Robert Mueller. He had already spent more than $1 million in lawyers' fees and sold his home to help with the debt. According to the sources, Flynn's family was being threatened by the Mueller team. Halper's involvement in the Bureau's investigation started much earlier than the FBI's opening of its crossfire investigation into the Trump campaign on July 31st, 2016. He was already providing information on Page, Papadopoulos, and Flynn earlier that year. And it was in 2016 when Halper had told the FBI that he had witnessed concerning interactions between Russia academic Svetlana Lakova and Flynn at the February 2014 seminar dinner. This suspicion, without any proof, was then leaked to papers in London and eventually discussed in the U.S. media. Lakova told the BBC in May 2017 that when she first saw the allegations raised in the media, she thought it was a joke. Numerous sources with knowledge of the allegations Halper made about Flynn said that they were absolutely false and that Flynn and Lakova only spoke for a short time at the dinner. Several email exchanges between Lakova, Flynn, and his assistant that took place after the dinner were generic in nature, as Flynn had asked her for a copy of the historical 1930s postcard she had brought to the seminar. But it didn't matter that it wasn't the truth, said the former senior intelligence official. It was already out there because of Halper's allegations and the constant leaking and lying of false stories of those to the media. So lots to unpack in regards to not only this article, but I want to take you back and forth with some video today as well too. Let's start off talking about this Lovinger, his attorney, Sean M. Bigley. How about that for a last name? It's almost like we've heard that word before. Where have we heard that before? Bigley, over and over again. Security clearance defense attorney, worldwide representation, armed forces, civilian and federal contractors. And let's read some of these recent tweets. This was from 4 hours ago for me. We now know the truth about the genesis of the Mueller investigation, and it's in regards to this Sarah A. Carter article. Say that 10 times fast. Sarah A. Carter article. And the one we just read. Okay, now 5 hours ago, whistleblower exposes key player in FBI Russia probe. It was all a setup. And again, referencing that same article. 2.5 hours and counting until Sarah A. Carter, D.C. and I break a news bombshell on Sean Hannity and Fox News. And we're going to talk about that Sean Hannity interview right there. That's what we're referring to. Says it will utterly eviscerate the credibility of the Mueller investigation. Do not miss this. Well, as we can see already by the article, there's a lot of interesting takeaways here. And I want to start you off on this interview. Here they're going to be talking about Stephen Halper and his relations to Russia. We're going to kind of bounce back and forth, but let's start off with that.
And remember, Stephen Halper was a professor emeritus at Cambridge who was the central player in the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation into President Donald Trump. And he was the man that the Washington Post and the New York Times, when they published their stories on Crossfire Hurricane, he was the person that they didn't want to out, the name that nobody wanted to reveal out of fear, based on intelligence community warnings, Sean, that people could either be killed or that his life would be in danger if his name goes public. Well, eventually his name did go public, and that was Stephen Halper. And what we discovered was that he was actually involved in every aspect of the FBI's investigation.
Slow down.
Yeah, Sarah's pumped today. John and I over here just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like Stephen Halper, obviously a massive, big puzzle piece, right? Who is systematically arranging the leaks to select individuals. Well, it seems like Halper is our central boy. Why is this important to drop prior to Bruce Orr's testimony? Well, many of you already know. Bruce Orr is scheduled to testify. Could be any minute by the time you're watching this video. Still the day before for me right now, but by the time you're watching this, it could be any minute. And there's been some people that have said, Patrick, I think Bruce Orr is going to kind of play the Peter Strzok game. Be coy and not give much. Could be. I tend to disagree, and this is why. Now, we have communications between Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele. The very virtue of the fact that we have those communications shows that Bruce Orr is in the wrong. He's not supposed to be communicating. He's not supposed to be dealing with any kind of foreign intelligence. Same thing with Nellie. And we already know the situation with Nellie working for Fusion GPS. So just the fact that we already know about those connections are very damning for both Bruce and Nellie, either or. And so for them now to play coy doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Now, they're in a very precarious position because they're going to be essentially selling out the deep state at this point, and this is going to be very, very crucial. We've talked about this really kind of off and on for a couple weeks about how important this testimony was going to be, and I think that's why the MSM is trying to run interference by giving us all these other different stories coming into the mainstream media narrative to deflect from this. But this is crucial and central. So why is it important to drop this information regarding Stephen Halper prior to Bruce Orr's testimony? Well, I would suppose it's going to keep him honest, isn't it? Because if now this information drops, Bruce Orr is going to have a real tough time saying anything to the contrary, which is why I think that he's going to sing. And Q has said before that both Bruce and Nellie Orr were cooperating witnesses, and this seems to lend credence to that fact. Because now that we know how deep Halper, we all knew that he was deep. I don't know if I realized that he was this deep at least. It's going to really put the screws to Bruce Orr during this testimony. And I think it's going to give a lot more emphasis to the truth that comes out during this testimony.
Yes, and Stefan Halper was prior to them taking on and asking the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court for that FISA warrant on Carter Page. He actually became acquainted with Page in July of 2016. He approached him. Page was invited to one of his Cambridge intelligence seminars, and that's where Page befriended Halper. And Halper and him became very close. And in fact, Halper was continuously asking Carter Page questions, asking him about his thoughts on Russia, asking him about this and that. And then later on in September 2000.
Did the spy in the Trump campaign have connections to Russia?
Well, this is what's even more interesting. Stefan Halper has direct ties to Russian intelligence because at his Cambridge intelligence seminars, twice he invited the former head of Russian intelligence. He invited the Russians
to the seminars. He's a spy in the Trump campaign.
Absolutely.
And then Sean's client, Adam Lovinger, finds this information.
Well, accidentally stumbled on it. He was doing his job at the Pentagon. He was at net assessment. He was going through contracts, and he realized, hey, here's this professor who's basically getting over $1 million in contracts to write reports. I don't understand what's going on here.
$2,000 a page, your report said.
That's absolutely true.
It's a lot of money. Good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
$2,000 a page. God, dog, sign me up. I'd like to get some work like that. How much for the Carter Page, Stefan Halper? Well, it looks to me like Mr. Halper has been working on Carter Page for quite some time. Sounds like some spy stuff. And if he really is that central spy in that big puzzle piece, that would be why that's so important to drop prior to Bruce Orr's testimony. Let's move on to post 1934. 4 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Q says focus here. And Q takes us back to the excerpt basically from SarahAcarter.com, the one we just read, raised troubling questions about Halper, who was believed to have worked with the CIA and part of the matrix of players in the Bureau's crossfire hurricane investigation into Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Halper, who assisted the FBI in the Russia investigation, appears to also have significant ties to the Russian government, as well as sources connected directly to President Vladimir Putin. Okay, so meanwhile, drawing in Carter Page, trying to get him to do some work, asking him all these questions, and trying to basically implicate him into this Russia-Trump collusion. Meanwhile, he's the one that's connected directly to President Vladimir Putin. Let's talk a little bit about that. What you got to say about that, Sarah?
There were direct links with high-level officials at the Pentagon and that he was going overseas, he was making a lot of money, and he was conducting what appears to be diplomatic relations, which is forbidden under federal law when you're a contractor at the Pentagon. This isn't something that's part of your normal work routine. But let me bring up something really quick before you go to Sean. He is also directly connected, of course, to George Papadopoulos and reached out to George Papadopoulos in September 2016, where he asked him, would you write a report for me? I'll pay you $3,000. Come to London. Let's talk. And then even more interestingly enough.
That sounds like poor Papadopoulos was set up.
Wait a minute here. Papadopoulos too, huh? Sounds like Papadopoulos needs to stopulus and call a copolis. Because with that $3,000 report, it implicates him as an accomplice. So we see what's going on here. It looks to me like the very definition of projection is having this Halper, who's in charge of this investigation in so many ways, also at the same time inserting his own self-created plants. How about that? Dems scream when POTUS meets with Putin? Yeah, POTUS meets with Putin. I like to say that. Well, of course they're going to. Why would that be? Because Putin knows exactly what those connections are as well, too. And he can share that information with the POTUS, and that can be public. So that can be POTUS and Putin goes public. D's demand to hold hearings with the interpreter used during the private POTUS-Putin meeting. Private POTUS-Putin meeting is going to soon be public. And that's exactly why they wanted to hold hearings. Because they wanted to sell this guy, this interpreter, down the river as well, too. They wanted to know exactly what were you talking about. What do you know? What do you know about Stefan Halper? Dems demand all meetings with Putin be canceled. Yeah, well, that didn't happen, did it? And Q had said a while back that all that information post-Helsinki regarding uranium-1 would at some point come out. And I was led to think that that was going to come from Putin itself. Now, we haven't seen that happen, but it still could happen that way. Or it could come out through a lot of this testimony through Bruce Orr. If POTUS knows everything, control over what organizations are central to operational success. Well, these are some of the organizations that had to get cleared out, right? The Department of Justice. Nobody was ever going to get any justice as long as the top levels were infiltrated. And it was the same with the FBI, who's basically just tasked with investigating in the first place. Now, the NSA was a little bit comped, but at the same time, there were still a lot of good people working for the NSA. And that's essentially what we're looking at now, deep state versus NSA. It's not really that simple, but essentially, the U.S. military, state. Now, I'm not sure about this number 6. Could this maybe mean foreign intel assets? We see the I missing a lot in the CIA. So could it be foreign intel assets? Not really sure. Federal intel assets? Freeze assets? Not really sure. I think I'm going to go with foreign intel assets for now. You can let me know. Ask yourself if above are central to operational success. Well, of course they are. Because you can get away with anything, number one, as long as nobody's investigating any crimes. And you get all that information through the NSA or the U.S. military, as well as state. The DOJ makes sure that nothing ever gets prosecuted. So as long as you've got that, you've got operational success either way. Who would you pick to lead such orgs? People who are on your team. Simple as that. And that is why this has been such a mess. As soon as President Trump was elected, everybody started getting gutted. Now, in the outward narrative, everyone's thinking that's because Trump has this failed regime, when in fact, we're cleaning out. We're pulling the intruder from the root of the weed. HRC election loss, that's how it all started, equals Clinton Foundation inflow stop. Yeah, all those donors, all those humanitarian organizations, the green organizations, the tech organizations, the people that set up the servers, the banks, anybody who was contributing to the Hillary Clinton campaign, which were so many, was billions of dollars. That all stopped when she lost because she no longer had anything to provide them in return. It was her complicity, her facilitation of all this that was going to allow all of these organizations to continue to do what they were going to do. And that's all gone now. So when the Clinton Foundation inflow stops, no name being McCain, that institute starts to ramp up. And oddly enough, I think this was my first video on In Pursuit of Truth, was regarding the McCain Institute. He had this institute at Arizona State that had to do with counterintelligence. Why does a university in Arizona need to be working on counterintelligence at a university level like that? And who were the donors? The donors were all the same people. All those PACs, all those special access groups, all those NGOs, all those corporations, all those tech giants, no matter whoever wanted to get in on the game to find dark money, we just did, is essentially all that. And my video from a couple days ago in regarding all that other money, just big money, so much money that it's probably not even money anymore. It's just numbers, just transactions. Direct correlation, of course it is. He did not depart on his own terms. And I would assume that to be, of course, no name McCain. He had a very crucial vote. He's still holding a very crucial seat. And so idealistically, he's not going to want to depart on his own terms. And let's face it, many of you guys, I saw many of your comments from yesterday's video talking about, cancer surviving. We all know that it doesn't go down like that. You don't just all of a sudden pull the plug on your treatment and go away. Cancer is a slow, terrible, painful killer. You lose weight. A lot of things happen. A lot of ugly things happen. I don't want to go into that. I'm sorry, but you understand. He went away so quick. That couldn't have been on his own terms. Now, I can't help but think, and I think a lot of you agree with me, he got the Rommel option. That's my personal opinion. I didn't want to express it yesterday, but that's my personal opinion. Because that gives him the ability to, quote unquote, preserve his credibility and still go down. Now Q says, think Flynn. And remember, Flynn has not yet been sentenced. 30 days? Could we be seeing something from Flynn in 30 days? Could it be testimony? Could it be his quote-unquote sentencing? Q says exactly 30 days. Q. Let's move on. Q adds on in post 1935, 11 minutes past the hour of 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. Think for yourself, research for yourself, trust yourself. Yeah, indeed, trust yourself. You're the one who has to do all the research. You're the one that puts the time in. You're the one that decides what you're going to watch and or not watch. Clickbait opinions are designed to attract reader to subscribe and or follow and or shape a pre-designed narrative. Follow the facts, sheep no more. Well, I think it's all pretty self-explanatory there, and I definitely don't think I need to over-explain this, especially to the people that are watching my channel. I've interacted with a great many of you over the months, and if there's one thing that I've learned is that that's exactly what you guys do. You think for yourself, you research for yourself, and you cross-reference against probably my channel and other channels. Simply, I humbly just host a lot of this, and we're all in this together. And what an exciting time that is, yeah? That we can all kind of share this, and how well-informed we're really becoming, especially considering that we are in the face of all this adversity through the MSM, which essentially is clickbait. But I think we're doing a great job. I'm honored to share it all with you. I really, really am. Some of you guys are absolutely amazing. So for that, tip of the cap to you. You guys are straight up legit, and you get the seal of approval from Sir Patrick Mack. Not that you needed it. All right, let's move on. Next post. 1936, 16 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m. Q says, witch hunt, no deals. Well, we've talked about before about making no deals. There was a certain someone that was wanting to make a deal, and we said no. And who was that? It was a witch, one of the biggest witches of them all. As a matter of fact, I think I've spotted that witch. Oh, yeah. Spotted that witch out in the forest. Otherwise known as the Chappaqua Witch. Witnesses claim that the Chappaqua Witch roams the woods of Westchester County, New York, still searching for lost electoral college votes. Legend states that she can be lured from the woods by placing a bag of foreign money near the tree line. Well, we all know the biggest witch of them all has been flaunting her influence for so many years in front of our face. And now it looks like she's going to eventually be reckoned with, because when this all comes down, it all comes back to this witch. And here we go. Here we have the U.S. military there briefing the witch. And he says right there is where Q says, no deals. I love this meme. I absolutely love that. Whoever did that did a fantastic Photoshop job. It's absolutely outstanding. No deals, witch. No deals.
So close.
No, you're super, super far off. Country Mile, 1937. 29 minutes after the hour of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard, we get this tweet from Mark Meadows. We've learned new information suggesting our suspicions are true. FBI, DOJ have previously leaked info to the press. Oh, you don't say? You mean James Comey, Andrew McCabe, John Brennan, James Clapper? And then use those same press stories as a separate source to justify FISA. You mean the Issakoff Yahoo article, the BuzzFeed article? The same article that was the David Corn story, the whole thing that got rehashed over and over again? You don't say. Congratulations on that breaking news. Unreal. Tomorrow's Bruce Orr interview is even more critical. Did he ever do this? And Q is confirming this here. Well, it is unreal. And I've been saying this a few times now, that Bruce Orr really is so key. Not so much because he plays the biggest role, but because he has such a direct role to Christopher Steele. It shows it so directly. We have their communications. And I can't help but think we're going to get some more accompanying info in regards to, I should say, coinciding with this testimony of Bruce Orr. Could it be those 20 pages? Now, we thought those 20 pages were going to come out a couple weeks ago. But it turns out maybe it was a good idea to just kind of threaten it. After all, we've watched the mainstream media melt down. Talked yesterday about Scioto getting 2 stories wrong in 1 week. These guys are disassembling themselves in anticipation of what we all know is going to drop. Now, of course, we're impatient about it because we want to get this done. But at the same time, this is a slow walk to November, and we should know that. And knowing that, it should give us a little bit more confidence. But we're watching this all go down slowly but surely. And it's all going to get triggered with Bruce Orr. I really believe this to be a big deal. So could this be a big drop coinciding? Not really sure, but let me show you this real quick. And how about this tweet from the U.S. Department of Defense? These guys look ready. They're preparing for the drop. U.S. Army soldiers wait to jump from an International Guard C-130 Hercules during training in Alaska. This was posted at 7 p.m. on the 27th of August. Well, carry on smartly, gentlemen. And just 24 hours before They tweeted this: "Here comes the boom. USMC Marines practice blowing things up to breach barriers in Norway." And this was also at 7 o'clock. We had a boom yesterday, didn't we? We had a big boom in Jacksonville, didn't we? So now it looks like we're looking for a drop.
We gonna find you. I'm letting you know now, so you can run and tell that, homeboy.
Yeah, homeboy. Post 1938. 2 minutes after the hour of 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Q adds on to this tweet. That's what you're seeing here. This communications flowchart. And this is Bruce Orr, the UK and Australia. Australia, UK, Bruce Orr. Bruce and Nellie Orr, essentially clowns, right? CIA. UK, they got their MI6 stuff going on. And of course, Australia's got the super ninja hoopty-doopty bat cave out there in Pine Gap. Massive, massive amounts of intel being shared back and forth between these agencies. Not an official Five Eyes. It's kind of like those old perfumes in the 90s. It's like if you like Five Eyes, you'll love Spy Guys. Okay, it's lame. Doesn't smell good. Bruce Orr communicating with Alexander Downer. And this is a Five Eyes example 1. And Alexander Downer, of course, is a former Liberal Party leader and Australian ambassador. Alexander, dude, don't be such a downer. Who says to Bruce Orr, "Hey, welcome to Australia, mate. Now get out. Country's full." And this is just one example here. Fake news blast. Narrative shift. I'm taking that to be necessary. Narrative shift, necessary. Could be referring to the NEC Intel phone company, but I think in this context, it seems narrative shift necessary would make sense. You can let me know what you think about the NEC. There's a few different things that I thought about, but it just sounds like it's making sense in context to say that it's necessary because it's necessary. Now, this is a sample, and all of a sudden we get a buttload of links. And we know what we see when we get a buttload of links. It means we've got to have a narrative shift. It's time to pump out some 4 a.m. talking points. So let's talk about those talking points because these are big ones. We're on Politico. Tony Blair calls claims he warned Trump of UK spying complete fabrication. The former British Prime Minister denies he was offered a job by Trump aides. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair on Thursday rejected claims he warned Donald Trump's aides that they and Trump were under surveillance by British spies during the U.S. election campaign, calling the allegations complete fabrication literally from beginning to end. A new book called Fire and Fury by author Michael Wolff reportedly claims Blair warned the president's aides about British intelligence services having the U.S. election campaign in 2016 under surveillance, according to the Times. The former British Prime Minister told the BBC's Today program Thursday that the claims were not correct. Blair did say that he had met Jared Kushner, the U.S. president's son-in-law, but stated the meetings were to discuss the Middle East peace process. Blair denied he had been angling for a job, which the book is said to describe as a post-election Middle East advisor role. He said he hadn't sought one and had not been offered one. Separately, Blair has written an essay in which he refers to Brexit as an error the contemporary world cannot understand and the generations of the future will not forgive. In his essay, Blair argued that the Labour should be making the case for European Union membership. I would like the Labour Party to be on the high ground of progressive politics, explaining why membership of the European Union is right as a matter of principle, for profound political as well as economic reasons, he said. He said the party's current position smacked of cake and eat it and was confusing. Well, I like cake and eat it over here. We all like that. Far better to fight for the right for the country to rethink, demand that we know the full details of the new relationship before we quit the old one. Go to the high ground on opposing Brexit and go after the Tories for their failures to tackle the country's real challenges, he said. Make Brexit the Tory Brexit. Make them own it 100%. Okay, so this is a beautiful plot twist. Here's another one off The Guardian. Complete invention. Blair denies telling Trump UK may have spied on him. Oh, I love this so much. The Independent. Tony Blair warned Donald Trump the UK may have spied on him. Hi, we're over here on the Irish Times. Tony Blair denies warning Trump that the UK may have spied on him. You see what's going on. Massive narrative shift. And this is absolutely beautiful. Let's take it down a little bit further. And Q says, Bruce Orr unlocks UK. And I'm going to guess now, as you know, that Q's been posting these as we go. Five Eyes Intel, I'm assuming that means. Five Eyes Intel. So Bruce Orr unlocks the UK and their Five Eyes Intel. UK and the 5i Intel unlocks REQ. Now, I'm not really sure what REQ means, but I'm assuming it's some sort of requirement or requisite or some sort of security clearance because Q says REQ equals, think, highest levels. And remember, the highest levels of government were getting out of town. They were going to New Zealand. They were going to England. They were going to Australia. They were going all over. What were they doing there? Just buying homes? Buying underground bunkers? Nah. They were buying, sharing, selling, and exchanging information. Focus 2. And Q takes us to a quote from the first article that we read, the SarahCarter.com article. This is the case with Halper, who is now proven to be a spy. We talked about that earlier. Possibly with Australian Ambassador Alexander Downer, who her husband met with in London. Okay, so remember, Halper was trying to lure in Carter Page as well as Papadopoulos. Alexander Downer had a few pints. Next thing you know, Papadopoulos is an accomplice. It was all set up. And that's exactly what Sarah Carter showed. Bruce Orr, closed door necessary. Yeah, Bruce Orr needs to testify behind closed doors because the information that he's going to drop has to be real deal. It has to be. Like I said before, red-handed comms. God, Q, it's like you're watching my channel and I haven't even finished putting out the video yet. Give me a chance. Red-handed comms. I said it earlier, revealed to encourage truthful testimony. Look, he's been busted. We've already got it. And the only way that he's going to protect his or, whoa, Nelly's ass is to sing. And of course, the deep state's going to go straight for the Arkansas option if that's the case. This is a big deal. 19 phone calls today. Now, I'm assuming that's what that means, that there's literally 19 phone calls. And I'm guessing that Q knows exactly who they were made between. But we do know that it involved the DC, UK, and Australia little Five Guys faux cabal. And they're all in a panic. So you can just picture right now, butthurt headquarters. Some front hole hat wearing knucklehead walks in the door. Hey guys, we got a big deal. Hey guys. And everyone's like, don't call us guys because we're non-binary. And he's like, oh, okay, sir. Sorry, but we got a code red. And they're like, don't call it a code red because red's kind of racist. And he's, oh, okay, code rainbow or whatever. We need a narrative shift. Desperately. They know about the UK connection. And of course, Australia with Malcolm Turnbull stepping out of Parliament in favor of Scott Morrison. Big panic. Who are the firewalls? Well, we know that some of the firewalls were the ones that signed on the FISA warrants, right? James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Sally Yates, Rod Rosenstein. Some of those other names we're not sure. We have a guess. Possibly Peter Strzok. Possibly Rachel Brand. Don't know. But we know that those firewalls were supposed to hold up, and they're not holding up anymore. And that's why we need a narrative shift, because the whole world is going to find out about the UK's involvement real soon. So as long as we're going to the UK, we need to blame this on someone else in the UK. And who better than Tony Blair? Now, let me rememberize you that this whole Tony Blair implication comes from this Michael Wolff, an author. And he wrote this lame book in a hurry called Fire and Fury. And this was going to take down Trump. He was the Stormy Daniels of the week. He was the big deal, making the media rounds. And this Fire and Fury ended up tanking, more like fail and foofy. And President Trump had tweeted about him. Michael Wolff is a total loser who made up stories in order to sell this really boring and untruthful book. He used Sloppy Steve Bannon, who cried when he got fired and begged for his job. Now, Sloppy Steve has been dumped like a dog by almost everyone. Too bad. And of course, Sloppy Steve is Sloppy Steve Bannon, who is not to be mistaken for Sloppy Joe, who is delicious. And Steve Bannon is going to make his way back in the picture too. We're not going to talk about him today, but he's going to be another one of those Christopher Walkens. Shows up in the middle of the movie just when everything's getting hot and you're like, oh damn, Christopher Walken's in this movie. Okay, it'll be awesome. Let's go back to the Q post. So we know that some phone calls were made. We know that DC, UK, and the Australian connection is coming up soon. And that's going to create this British narrative shift heading towards Tony Blair. In order to protect these firewalls, what will fake news push tomorrow? I think we know. Let's move on. Post 1939, 6 minutes after the hour of 11, Q adds on with this. Hooah! From the U.S. Army. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you already know what we're talking about, but let me take you over there. We're over here on General Flynn's Twitter page, and as you can see, He's got the banner set up. Hoorah! Now, he did this just the other day. And what makes this of note for me is the fact that General Flynn doesn't really tweet. His son does. Not so much with him. You can see some of the dates here with some of these tweets. So this was as of note, and I picked it up right in the morning when I woke up. I had seen it, and I accompanied it here with this previous Q post. Hoorah, soldier, thank you for your service. God bless. And I find it very interesting because now Q is saying Flynn's going to enter the picture in what looks to be exactly 30 days. Remember, Flynn has not yet been sentenced. They've been delaying this over and over again. So it'll be very interesting to see how Flynn enters the narrative in this. And it's going to be very, very exciting because now some of our favorite players are entering the movie. And it also implies to me that we've got ourselves a full-scale military operation as well. And the most recent post is 1940, 16 minutes after the hour of midnight Eastern Standard Time. We get 4 YouTube links, 2 at the beginning, 2 at the end. I'm not going to play you, but just the one, because I don't want to get hit with too much copyright. You've seen these last 2. Okay, let me talk about the last 2 first. This third link is We Must Fight from President Reagan. It's about a 3.5-minute video. If you haven't seen it, I do suggest that you check it out. I've played it many times. And the fourth one is one that we've seen many, many times from Q. And it's the speech from Donald Trump that says the speech that will get Donald Trump elected. And of course, it's always a good listen. I'm not going to play those because they're rather long, and I've played them many times before. Now, let me talk about this post. Was Nazism ever truly destroyed? Well, no, of course not. It just basically spread out, went clandestine, everybody retreated and regrouped. Was it merely a subdivision within a larger organization? Yeah, everybody spread out throughout the world, hiding out, regrouping, waiting to try it all over again. One finger attached to a hand? Exactly. Did Antifa organically form? No, of course not. Those knuckleheads couldn't organically form anything. So they need to be funded, right? They need to be paid. And who funds those? The very same groups that pushed all this back in the day. The Soroses, the Rothschilds. You know the names, the same cast of characters. Flag design coincidence? No, of course not. This is just another push. Just another attempt. It's a rebrand. That's all it is. Socialist push in the U.S., worldwide coincidence? Yeah, they might as well double down on it now. As you see, a lot of these Democrats are saying, all right, you want socialism? We'll give you socialism. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. And this is worldwide. We're seeing this worldwide. We're seeing it all throughout Europe. We're seeing it all throughout the UK. We're seeing so many sovereign nations have their borders flooded. You see in Spain, people literally just pulling up boats and running onto the beach. Meanwhile, in South America, you got hurricanes and earthquakes and you name it. Natural disasters displacing homes. Why? So you could have more refugees murking up the borders. And that's the only way they're going to be able to accomplish this, because no one's going to vote socialism in at this point. Take a look at Venezuela. Everybody knows the gig's up. And that's the global power struggle. It's just gotten flat out us against them. And that's a price that we should not have to pay. There's a price we will not pay. There's a point beyond which they must not advance. And that's the point. Now, these first 2 links are from the movie Sum of All Fears. I'm going to play you the first one in just a second. Sum of All Fears, if you've not seen the movie, it's very, very, very relevant to what's going on as far as the plot goes. You have basically this generation of discord between 2 superpowers by an outside entity trying to get, whether it's the U.S. and Russia, U.S. and China, U.S. and Korea, doesn't matter. They wanted to get us in another full-scale war with another superpower so that it would escalate, hopefully, to nuclear proportions. That was the limit they were able to go. And they were so willing to do that because they knew that if the 2 countries wiped each other out, this socialist utopian EU project can emerge as sort of the solution for the problem. And they were willing to kill to do this. They were willing to nuke to do this. That's why we had the North Korea threat. That's why we had the Iran threat, or whatever the threat of the week. Russia. Always trying to pit us against Russia, hoping we would go at it and remove that competition so that the EU could emerge. So all of this has been going on for so long. But this is the real gist of it here in the first video. Let's take a look.
Most people believe the 20th century was defined by the death struggle of communism versus capitalism, and that fascism was but a hiccup. Today we know better. Communism was a fool's errand. The followers of Marx gone from this earth, but the followers of Hitler are bound and thrive. Hitler, however, had one great disadvantage. He lived in a time when fascism, like a virus, like the AIDS virus, needed a strong host in order to spread. Germany was that host, but strong as it was, Germany could not prevail. The world was too big. Fortunately, the world has changed. Global communications, cable TV, the internet. Today the world is smaller, and the virus does not need a strong host in order to spread. This virus is airborne. One more thing. Let no man call us crazy. They called Hitler crazy, but Hitler wasn't crazy. He was stupid. You don't fight Russia and America. You get Russia and America to fight each other and destroy each other.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The dark, dirty details that's decades in the making. You could argue even longer than that, much longer than that. Well, there's a price we will not pay, and there's a point beyond which they must not advance. There's a point in which they will not advance. After all, you, me and you and me, us, we, the people, we got something to say about that, don't we? And on that note, I would like to tell you all that I'm honored, I'm humbled, and I'm absolutely thrilled to share in this revolution with you. After all, this revolution will not be televised, but it will be executed by all means necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, those are your Q posts for today. Let me leave you with one more thing. I'm going to take you over to my Twitter page, and you can see my post. Hey, John, how many is that? 17! That's right. Take you over here. President Donald J. Trump announces 17th wave of judicial nominees from August 27th. Today, President Donald J. Trump announced his intent to nominate a 17th wave of judicial nominees as follows. And you can read this here. I'm not going to go into this. These are some of the nominees here. So congratulations to them. Very, very cool. More number stuff. You like numbers, don't you, numbers guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. All right, kids. Those are your Q posts for today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me. And if you are new to my channel, please know that YouTube, as well as all these other social media platforms, will unclick you and uncheck you and unsubscribe you. So please be a dear and just keep checking back. You can either search me at IPOT or In Pursuit of Truth. I'm over here on Twitter. If you'd like to join me at IPOT1776, that's at IPOT1776. I'm on Gab, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Real.Video, I'm on, I don't know what I'm on. My Patreon link is down below as well too. All the links are down below in the video description, and that's all I got for you. Ladies and gentlemen, stay interested. This is getting good. I'm Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay safe.